prosecutor yells at the Joker with pure fury. What the Joker does next leaves them speechless. The courtroom was supposed to break him. That's what everyone believed. Cameras waiting, reporters whispering, a city hungry to watch its favorite villain finally collapse. But when the doors opened and the Joker walked in, calm, quiet, almost human, the entire room forgot how to breathe. The prosecutor slammed his fist on the table and screamed at him with a rage that came from someplace personal. His voice cracked as he shouted, "You don't deserve to live! You don't deserve mercy!" Yet, the Joker didn't flinch. He simply stared back with eyes that looked less like a criminal and more like someone who knew a truth no one else dared to speak. And in that moment, before a single verdict was read, everyone understood something terrifying. The prosecutor wasn't fighting a clown. He was fighting a man who had nothing left to lose and everything left to expose. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel, because the stories we tell don't just entertain. They drag you into the shadows where the truth waits to be found. The moment the prosecutor's scream faded, the silence that followed felt heavier than any sentence the court could give. People shifted in their seats, uneasy, unsure why the man covered in smudged clown paint seemed calmer than the man in a perfectly pressed suit. The Joker sat with his hands folded, almost politely, as if he were attending someone else's trial. As if none of this was about him. But beneath that calm, something darker breathed. The prosecutor, Daniel Crowe, wiped sweat from his forehead. His voice trembled, but not with fear. No, this was something colder, something personal. "Tell them," Crowe shouted, pointing at the Joker. "Tell them why you did it. Tell them why you destroyed lives." The Joker lifted his chin slowly, like a man waking from a dream he didn't want to leave. A faint smile curled at the edge of his mouth. "Oh, Danny," he whispered softly, "you know exactly why." Crowe's jaw tightened. The judge ordered them both to maintain professionalism, but the damage had been done. A secret had been nudged into the room. A question, a wound, and wounds have a way of bleeding truth. The spectators leaned forward. Even the guards stiffened, sensing the air shift. No one knew that Crowe and the Joker had history, at least, not yet. The Joker glanced at the jury with a strange gentleness, the kind one might show to children hearing a bedtime story that's about to turn frightening. "You all believe I'm chaos," he said, "that I wake up every morning deciding who to destroy next. But the funny thing is," he chuckled softly, "chaos has better taste than the people who run this city." The judge struck his gavel. "Mr. Joker, this is not a place for theatrics." "Everything is a place for theatrics," the Joker replied, "especially the places pretending they're not." Crowe lunged forward. "Stop talking like you're the victim. You killed innocent people." Something in the Joker's eyes shifted. Not the madness people expected, but something sharper, controlled, almost painful. "Innocent," he repeated, tasting the word as if it were poison. "You love that word, Danny. You love hiding behind it." Crowe froze, just for a second, but the room noticed. The Joker leaned back in his chair, gaze unwavering. "Tell me, did you call her innocent too?" Crowe's knuckles whitened, his breath hitched. The gallery rippled with whispers. The judge glared at Joker. "One more personal attack, and I will have you removed from your own trial." Joker shrugged. "Remove me. Keep me. Cage me. None of it matters. I'm not the one on trial." Then his voice softened into something haunting. "Not really." Even the judge didn't know how to respond to that. A guard placed a restraining hand on Joker's shoulder, but he didn't resist. He simply tilted his head toward Crowe. "You started this performance, Danny. I'm just playing my role." Crowe shouted, "There is no performance. There is only justice." At that, the Joker laughed. Not the loud, hysterical laugh he was famous for. No, this one was quieter, broken, heavy. A laugh soaked in something closer to grief than madness. "Justice," he murmured, "if only you understood what that word meant, before it was too late." The judge demanded order once again, but this wasn't chaos. It was revelation pressing against the walls, begging to be let in. As the courtroom recovered from the tension, the Joker suddenly grew quiet. His gaze drifted upward, not to the ceiling, but to a memory only he could see. "They say a man becomes a villain the moment he stops believing in the world," he murmured. "But I didn't stop believing. The world stopped believing in me first." The room fell still. Crow tried to reclaim control. "Do not twist this into sympathy. This man destroyed families." Joker smiled. "And what did you destroy, Danny? Careers? Futures? Lives? But you did it with a suit and a smile. So that makes you innocent, right?" Crow's voice cracked. "Shut up." "No," Joker whispered. "Not today." The judge ordered a recess, desperate to cool the rising storm. Guards stepped forward to escort the Joker away. But before they touched him, he spoke one last sentence, low enough that only Crow could hear, but loud enough that the room felt its echo. "You know why I'm really here." Crow swallowed, hard, his face drained of color. And that's when the Joker leaned closer, eyes dark, yet strangely human, and whispered with chilling clarity, "This isn't my trial, Danny. This is your confession." The prosecutor stumbled back like he'd been struck. The room erupted with noise, speculation, confusion. But the Joker didn't move. He simply sat there, calm as death, watching Crow fall apart in front of the whole world. And as the guards finally led him toward the holding room, the Joker turned slightly, just enough for Crow to hear one more line. "Part one's over, Danny's. But the real story, that begins next." The holding room was colder than the courtroom, quieter too, yet the tension felt alive, crawling across the walls like a shadow waiting to take shape. The Joker sat alone at a metal table, fingers tapping a slow, thoughtful rhythm, not restless, not nervous, just calculating, as if every second passing was a piece of a larger puzzle only he could see. On the other side of the wall, Prosecutor Daniel Crow paced like a man circling the edge of a cliff he never meant to stand on. His assistants whispered to him, begged him to get control of himself before the trial resumed, but their words barely reached him. His hands shook, his throat tightened. Because for the first time in his flawless career, Daniel Crow felt something he had never felt in a courtroom: fear. When the guards finally escorted Joker back inside, the watchers leaned in, hungry for answers they couldn't yet name. Cameras flashed like tiny lightning bolts. The city wanted justice. The city wanted blood. But what it got instead was a story unraveling itself inside the room like a slow-burning fuse. Crow tried to begin his questioning again, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "The defendant is..." He cleared his throat. "The defendant is responsible for..." The Joker interrupted gently. "We can skip the script, Danny. They already know I'm responsible for something, but they don't know what you're responsible for." Crow slammed his palms against the table. "I said stop." The Joker leaned forward. "Why?" Afraid someone might finally hear the truth through all that polished righteousness. The judge ordered the Joker to stay silent, but this time he didn't respond with defiance. Instead, he spoke like a man who had been waiting too long to be heard. "You all think I woke up one day and chose chaos," he said, eyes scanning the jury. "But chaos chooses you when the world stops protecting the people who need it most." Crow muttered under his breath, "Don't you dare bring her into this." The Joker's smile faded. For the first time, his expression carried no amusement, no mockery, only a scar deep beneath the paint. "She was the only person who looked at me without fear," he said quietly. "The only one who saw the man before the madness." Gasps rippled across the room. The judge banged the gavel again. "Mr. Joker." But he continued, voice steady. "She came to your office, Danny. She begged, she cried. She told you exactly who was hurting her. You heard every word. And what did you do?" Crow's face drained of color. "That's enough. You sent her away," Joker whispered. "Told her there wasn't enough to proceed. Isn't that the word you used? Such a polite word for abandonment." Crow's breath hitched. His hands trembled visibly now. The Joker looked down, not for effect, but because remembering hurt him, truly hurt him. "And when she went home that night," his voice cracked slightly, "someone else was waiting, someone she feared more than the dark." The court fell into a silence so dense it felt suffocating. By the time I found her, Joker said carefully, she wasn't the girl who smiled at the world anymore. She was a ghost in her own skin. And you? He lifted his gaze to Crow. You told her story. Didn't matter. Crow took a step back. I didn't know she was connected to you. That's the problem, Joker replied softly. You never bothered to know. The crowd surged with whispers, some in disbelief, some in shock, some in something more dangerous. Sympathy. Joker turned toward them, expression shifting into something almost peaceful. I didn't become a monster because the world was cruel. I became one because cruelty was allowed, encouraged, rewarded. Crow shook his head violently. You murdered people, you burned half the city. Joker nodded almost sadly. Yes, I did terrible things, but the people I went after? His eyes sharpened. They weren't innocent, not by any definition except the ones written by men like you. The courtroom froze. Every word felt like a blade cutting through the facade of justice they all trusted. The judge struggled to regain control. This is not relevant to the case. It is, Joker said firmly, because I didn't come here to escape punishment. I came here to show the world what punishment really looks like. Before anyone could speak, the Joker slowly stood. Guards rushed forward, but he raised his hands calmly, surrendering without resistance. You want to lock me away? Fine. You want to call me a villain? A monster? He smiled faintly. Maybe I am. His gaze returned to Crow one last time. But at least I face what I've done. Can you say the same, Danny? Crow stumbled backward, eyes wide, not from anger now, but from something far more dangerous. Guilt. And that's when it happened. Crow collapsed. Right there, in front of the entire court, he fell to his knees. Not from injury, not from Joker's hands, but from the crushing weight of the truth he had buried for years. A truth now exposed to the world. Joker watched him fall, and for the first time in the entire trial, he didn't smile. He just whispered, barely audible, "Justice isn't always decided by the law." The judge called for medical staff, chaos erupting around them. Guards grabbed Joker, dragging him away, but his eyes never left Crow, broken, trembling, unraveling on the courtroom floor. And as Joker disappeared behind the doors, he spoke one last chilling line. Some verdicts deliver themselves. And that is how a single moment inside a courtroom turned a villain into a mirror the whole city was terrified to look into. If you want more stories that twist the truth, don't forget to subscribe, because in this world, the next story is always darker than the last.